home right now, and we want to talk with our own Nate Morabito, who joins me here in the live Impact News Center, because, Nate, you have an important update to an investigation you first brought us in October, and you're going to have an update tonight at 11. So what have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Sometimes this process takes much longer than anyone really wants it to. We started investigating a situation in a neighborhood in Union County. Honestly, back in August was my first visit out there. We returned to that neighborhood today because there is some good news as far as homeowners now getting control over whether or not they give their money to a company to use a pool, a tennis court, a clubhouse, something their HOA doesn't even own, something many of them have been upset about, finally getting some impact there and helping benefit them. But before we talk fully about that, let's rewind back to our story in October to kind of get you up to date, up to speed where all of this started.
If you live in a neighborhood with things like maybe a pool, a tennis court, or a clubhouse, your HOA fees usually cover that. But a management company has been forcing homeowners in one Union County neighborhood to pay for those amenities, even though they aren't actually in the neighborhood. And through our Where's the Money investigation, it found they've used the HOA's rules to try and justify the charges, which are in addition to the neighborhood's traditional HOA dues. WCNC Charlotte's Nate Morabito spent months fighting on homeowners' behalf, and tonight those people should soon get some financial relief.
This is the Bluffs at Stonebridge.
First, they bought a home. Next, they took a risk and started a small business. Two major financial decisions in less than a year for a family of 6.
Definitely never a boring moment.
Already overwhelmed.
We're not really in a position for stupid financial surprises.
Then, in recent months, this urgent collections notice showed up for more than $1,300.
There's a reason we said we would never live in an HOA. I'm like, oh, here it goes. This is so frustrating.
The notice accuses Katrina Riffle's family of never paying a $1,000 initiation fee,
which we had never heard anything about,
when they moved in to cover the clubhouse a mile up the road, and failing to make $39 monthly payments.
We were told it was optional
for use of that building, the connected pool, and tennis courts, all of which aren't physically within their Union County neighborhood.
I honestly was like, oh my gosh, these people are crazy. Like, we don't want the pool.
Riffle says the whole situation blindsided them.
They're kind of pushing us back into a corner, saying we don't have an option on something that was not disclaimed to us.
What's unusual about this is her HOA doesn't actually own the Stonebridge amenities. Instead, one of the builders, True Homes, is the owner of all of this property.
Right now, we are at our amenities parking lot.
J.R. Tucker has long fought back against the charges.
There was a couple months that I chose not to pay it to see what would happen. I was sent a notice in the mail from a debt collector.
Tucker, who bought his home in 2020, can't understand how a private entity can force him and other homeowners to pay for something they don't want and their HOA doesn't own.
That doesn't sit right with me.
To make matters worse, despite his longtime opposition, he says the company increased the monthly charge earlier this year.
It makes me very, very upset that we're having to deal with this.
Hearing their concerns, I started asking questions. In August, an attorney for the Homeowners Association told us collections notices were not sent by or at the direction of the HOA board, suggesting instead True Homes Management Company was the one behind the letters. Fast forward to October, True Homes confirmed those fees are only supposed to be charged to those who actually use the facilities. After we alerted True Homes' lawyer about the situation, the company shared this statement, telling us its management company mistakenly mentioned possible steps for collection of unpaid facility fees through a homeowners association, adding True Homes is working with that company to make sure any future communication clearly reflects the separate facility fee structure. The attorney followed up directly with the Riffles Tuesday night, apologizing for the debt collection notice. Those words,
right now, it's just we are a little bit in survival mode,
should now lift a huge weight off Katrina Riffle and her family. Perhaps a sign that life is about to become manageable again. Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte. This is so important to me. When we air an investigation and a company or an attorney or a spokesperson tells us we are going to address this, we need to follow through and make sure that they address it. And then when they do address it, go back to those people and say, what's the impact? And the impact now is that people who had been forced before to pay for something they don't use, their HOA doesn't own, now has the chance to opt out, meaning they will not have to pay anymore. Of course, they won't get to use the pool or the clubhouse or the tennis courts, but some of these people weren't using them anyways. Now they can save hundreds of dollars a year, $39 a month. That is a big deal for those communities.
Certainly, when you think about all the things we have to pay every month, whether it's reoccurring subscriptions or food or housing, that $39 certainly adds up. You've done years of investigating. Have you ever come across a story like this before, where an HOA was charging people for amenities that were off-site?
I mean, this is where it's wild to me, because there's an HOA involved. There's actually two HOAs, because there's a couple different neighborhoods under this umbrella here. The HOAs weren't the ones actually pushing the money on people. It was another company, a builder, that said, hey, we built these amenities, and then the management company said, hey, using your HOA bylaws, you should be paying this. I've never seen anything like this. And I cannot imagine living in a neighborhood and essentially a private company outside my neighborhood says, you have to pay a monthly fee whether or not you want to use this pool, because that's what your HOA rules say. I can imagine an HOA that would be okay with that, honestly. And I think it's great for people that want to keep using it. We talked to a couple today. They have a baby boy due in May, and they use the pool, and they're okay with paying this because they see the benefit of it. But they say, hey, we've got some neighbors who are older. They don't use those amenities. Why should they have to pay?
I'm curious, Nate, in your conversation with these residents over the months, what was the explanation that they received when they bought into these neighborhoods? Was this something that was presented to them as an amenity on site, or was it something out of mind, out of sight?
Yeah, I mean, so Katrina Riffle, who you heard from, this is the mom. She's got a family of 6. They were told that this was optional. It was their assumption that this should be an optional fee. There's a pool down the road. You can use it, but you got to pay for it. And so they were not expecting, she told me, to have to be required to pay for it. But it's a little bit kind of hit or miss, depending on who you talk to. Some people had to pay an initiation fee, other people didn't. And I think the whole point of our investigation was to have a clear set of rules for everyone moving forward, so it wasn't so confusing and so murky. I mean, no homeowner should have to guess on how much money they're going to have to pay in a year, or be blindsided by a debt collector's notice that they owed $1,300 plus for something they didn't even realize they had to pay for. So I think a big part of this, in talking to the attorney for True Homes, which is that company that owns the amenities, is really trying to get everyone on the same page. There was something that was amiss here. That's why these people reached out to us. We were able to amplify their concerns and show that this was off, and now we are well into the process of correcting course, which I think is great. And it's probably not going to be as clean as people want in that neighborhood. There are going to be things that pop up that maybe they weren't expecting or they don't like, but without this investigation, that communication wouldn't even have started.
We have your name, but of course your email address on the screen right now, Nate, and you mentioned that this story came to you on behalf of a viewer tip, and we're seeing the aftermath of that reporting after months of work you put in. Is your email address the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yes, it's the easiest way for me to stay organized and to make sure I respond to everyone, and morabito@wcnc.com. I got an email from J.R. Tucker, actually, who you heard from in that story, probably about a year ago, who said, hey, we have this issue. I would really love to bring it to your attention. And I had a real hard time, James, trying to figure out and wrap my head around what was going on in this community. It's very confusing, right? And it's very unusual, as we talked about. I've never seen anything like it. And he was persistent. And at the same time, I said, well, what are you doing? Are you reaching out to your HOA board? Are you reaching out to these companies? It's really critical for me to make sure our viewers are making a good faith effort to get this corrected without going on the news as well. Look, it's my job. I'm happy to kind of put wrongs on the news and try to right them. But I just want to make sure that we're all acting in the best of intentions and good faith, trying to avoid this. This should generally be a last resort. You haven't called the news station. But unfortunately, for many people, they go those paths They put the work in and they can't get kind of anything to budge. And that's what happened in this case. And honestly, I'm not sure what would have happened in this neighborhood had he not finally convinced me, look, this is a story worth looking into. I mean, in that section of the neighborhood alone that's impacted by this, more than 200 letters went out, right? That's a lot of, then there's a whole nother homeowners association that True Homes kind of helped build, where there's almost another 200. And they don't get to have this option that this, Bluffs at Stonebridge and the Stonebridge Homeowners Association now gets. So this is a neighborhood that really kind of had put their hands up. We don't know what else to do. And they tried, and then they reached out to us, and they were persistent with me too, saying, hey, I really need you to understand what's happening here. And I'm so glad, I'm grateful we did this, because if you can think alone, a $1,300 debt notice, a debt collector is going to be reaching out to that family. That's a lot of money to have to pay. They don't have to pay it now. There's been threats of liens in the past on people's properties. Nobody wants that. When you're selling your home, you got a lien on your property. So I'm hopeful that behind the scenes, there's been a lot of activity. And I think we're getting closer and closer to finally getting this resolved for those people out there. But it's really been surprising. I even had one realtor that was grateful that we kind of brought this out, because you really want clear goalposts here. You don't want them to be moved. Everybody should have a clear idea of where we are headed, what the rules are, how much we should pay. And you also heard in that story that this association, this company, raised the fees. They were charging people that they shouldn't have been charging, and then they raised the fees even more. I mean, can you imagine living there and thinking, why can't I get my point across that turns out to be accurate?
Absolutely. You'll have an update for this story tonight. What time can people tune in, and what can they expect?
Yep, tonight at 11. To me, it's important that we have a variety of people that we talk to. So we talked to a couple in the neighborhood today who we not interviewed before. You're going to hear from them about kind of the path moving forward, but also their perspective on this. And, I just think it's important that if people have concerns, you've tried your best to get your point of view across to the right people and it's still not working, please reach out to us. I focus mostly on systemic issues, institutional issues, widespread problems. This is a widespread problem that affects a lot of money. It's a where's the money investigation. Money is one of our specialties. So those are some things to remember when you reach out to us. But I respond to every email that's sent directly to me.
Appreciate the reporting, appreciate the time, Nate, and we look forward to having you back here on Live Impact News so we can talk about this and other investigations coming up.
Sounds good, James. Thanks.
Thanks so much.